Unaware the wife he ignored was about to buy his company, husband poured dirty water on her at the business dinner. As his boss laughed, what she did next ruined his career. He didn't just embarrass her. He stood up in front of his co-workers, his boss, and his own mistress, and dumped a cloudy jug of leftover table water over his wife's dress like she was a joke. That night, in an upscale restaurant reserved for a corporate dinner, Emma Harper sat quietly at the long table, trying to support her husband. Daniel Harper, a proud mid-level manager desperate to impress, was busy showing off. His boss, Mr. Lawson, already half drunk, kept pushing him to lighten the mood. Someone laughed and asked, "Does your wife ever stand up to you, Daniel?" Daniel's pride flared. He grabbed the cloudy jug of melted ice, lemon slices, and herbs, glanced at his assistant Chloe, the same woman he'd been calling late at night, and smirked. "She can't even handle this." Splash! The cold, dirty water soaked Emma from shoulder to lap. The whole table exploded in laughter. Mr. Lawson slapped the table. Chloe smirked. A few phones quietly came up. Eyes stared. Emma didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply stood up, water dripping to the floor, and looked at her husband like she was seeing him for the last time. "Thank you," she said quietly. This clarified everything. They thought she would leave in shame and disappear. What none of them knew was this. The woman they just mocked had been quietly buying shares of the very company they worked for, through a maze of hidden companies legally tied to her maiden name. Behind the polite smile and the soaked dress stood the true majority owner of Baxter Tech, and soon the man who poured dirty water on her to impress his boss would walk into a boardroom and realize he'd just handed his entire career to the wife he ignored. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting Emma's voice be drowned out by their laughter again. When you click that button, you stand with every person who was humiliated, underestimated, and still rose higher than anyone expected. Please subscribe now, and in the comments, tell me where you're watching from. The glow of the laptop screen lit Emma Harper's face like a quiet storm waiting to break. It was almost midnight, but she sat upright in her home office, fingers frozen above the keyboard, eyes fixed on the long list of unread messages from her husband, Daniel. 47 unread messages, most of them from the last 3 days. Excuses, half-hearted apologies, sudden bursts of fake affection that always came after he crossed a line. He wanted to talk about last night. He wanted to explain. He wanted another chance. Emma didn't open a single one. She selected them all and hit delete. This was not a dramatic gesture. It was a practiced motion, something she had done many nights before when Daniel turned cruel, then tried to patch it with words instead of change. But tonight felt different. Tonight she felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not confusion, only clarity. Emma Harper, 34 years old, wife of Daniel Harper and founder of one of the most successful eco-care brands in the country, looked around her office. Papers were spread across the desk, early sketches of product labels from her first brand, financial reports with numbers high enough to make anyone blink, and a laptop open to a dashboard labeled Harper Strategic Holdings. It wasn't the name anyone at Baxter Tech saw in public reports. On paper, the company was controlled by layers of funds and trusts. But here, in this private dashboard, it held the name she chose for herself after she got married. Only 2 people besides her knew that she was the real owner: her lawyer, Mr. Collins, and her financial advisor, Michael Grant. Certainly not Daniel. Daniel Harper, also 34, was a mid-level manager at Baxter Tech. Proud, charming, and always trying to climb higher. He liked to appear powerful. He liked to act like the decision maker. He liked being seen as the strong one in the marriage. He had no idea the woman he overlooked every day was the reason he could afford that image. Emma leaned back in her chair, letting the quiet room settle around her. Her story didn't begin with power. It began with exhaustion. 10 years earlier, a much younger Emma stood in a tiny rented storage space that smelled like melted wax and lavender oil. She was 24, working late into the night, packing handmade candles and skincare jars for her small business, ML Naturals. Money was tight. Her hands were cracked from mixing batches. She slept 4 hours a night. She didn't tell anyone how hard those nights were. Not even her parents knew the full story. But she kept going because she believed in the products she made and she believed in herself. As the orders slowly grew, she taught herself branding, marketing, and logistics. She learned to register trademarks, negotiate prices, and talk to suppliers who barely took her seriously. When her brand suddenly went viral online for its clean ingredients, everything changed. Orders exploded. Blogs wrote about her. Influencers mentioned her without being paid a cent. Then the emails came. Investors, distributors, a private equity firm with an offer she never imagined possible. When that firm finally bought ML Naturals, she agreed, but only under one careful condition that Mr. Collins helped her add. Her remaining revenue streams and profit shares would be funneled into a network of blind trust with her birth name, Emma Lane, quietly listed as the ultimate owner. That decision became the seed of something bigger. It became Harper Strategic Holdings, the quiet empire behind her calm face. Daniel never asked where the money came from. Emma told him she had sold a small online shop before they met, and that the rest of the money was locked away in long-term investments. He never pushed for details. He never questioned how that small shop paid for their house, his early job losses, and his growing taste for expensive suits. He didn't wonder because he didn't look. Emma met Daniel at a volunteer event when she was 27. He was charming, warm, and funny. He liked her smile, her softness, her simplicity. Emma wore jeans and a plain t-shirt that day, her hair in a loose ponytail. She never mentioned ML Naturals or the sale. She didn't want to lead with success. She wanted someone who loved her heart first, and Daniel did, at least at the beginning. They married 2 years later. In those early days, Daniel was attentive, grateful, affectionate. He bragged about how lucky he was. He said he didn't care how much she made, as long as they were together. Emma believed she had found a true partner. She believed he saw her. She believed he cared. But ambition changed him, or maybe it revealed him. In recent years, Daniel grew distant. He praised his coworkers more than his wife. He cut Emma off in conversations. He forgot important dates. He stayed out late and brushed off questions. When Baxter Tech hired him, he made the job his whole identity. He cared more about his boss's approval than Emma's feelings. He treated Emma's calm nature like weakness. He didn't see the discipline behind her silence. He didn't see the woman he married. Emma was not weak. She was waiting. She turned back to her laptop and opened a folder labeled Baxter Tech Investments. Dozens of transactions filled the screen. Small purchases over several years through different funds and entities Mr. Collins had set up. Together, they now controlled just under 48% of Baxter Tech. One final agreed-upon block of shares, already negotiated, waiting only for her signal, would make her the majority owner. A cold, steady breath escaped her lips. Her phone buzzed. A message from Mr. Collins, timed exactly when he said it would come. Collins. Acquisition timeline moved up. Our side can complete the final purchase within days. Are you ready to confirm? Emma stared at the message, her pulse slow and steady. Ready? She had been ready for years. She just hadn't been sure why she would use that power. Tonight, something inside her shifted. Something powerful. Something final. She typed, "Yes, proceed as planned." As she hit send, a quiet thought crossed her mind. A thought that would lead directly into the breaking point waiting in the next scene. Before these shares are final, Daniel is going to show me exactly who he really is. The shouting started the very next evening, before Emma even reached the living room. Daniel's voice thundered through the house, sharp, irritated, impatient. How many times do I have to say it? Don't rearrange my files. He wasn't yelling at Emma. He was yelling at his laptop, at an email that didn't load the way he wanted, at a presentation Chloe had sent late. But the sound hit Emma like a slap all the same. The calm of the house cracked open. Emma froze in the hallway, watching him from a distance. Daniel Harper, her husband, 34, mid-level manager at Baxter Tech, stood in the center of the room, tie half loosened, hair messy, eyes burning with stress. He looked nothing like the warm, caring man who once brought her flowers and whispered dreams about their future. Now his ambition had grown taller than his empathy. He climbed it like a ladder, step by step, leaving Emma behind. He clicked angrily, muttering about deadlines and incompetent coworkers. A message from his boss flashed on the screen, demanding a revised report before morning. When he finally noticed Emma, he didn't soften. "What?" he snapped. "Why are you staring?" The intensity of his voice shattered the moment. Then just as quickly, he exhaled, dropped his shoulders, and turned back to the laptop like nothing had happened. The switch in his behavior was sharp and jarring. This was the new Daniel. The night settled and the tension slowly quieted. Emma walked past him and into the kitchen, each step heavy with reflection. She remembered when Daniel used to rush home, eager to tell her stories about his day. Now he didn't even look up when she entered a room. He ignored her texts. He canceled dinners they planned weeks ahead. He talked over her whenever she tried to share something important. And worst of all, he acted irritated when she had ideas, like her thoughts were interruptions. She watched him from the doorway, wondering when the slow fading began. 2 years into their marriage, they attended a small gathering at a friend's house. Emma remembered laughing as she talked with Daniel and his coworkers. When she tried to mention one of Daniel's clients, she mispronounced the name slightly. Daniel's reaction burned in her memory. He grabbed her arm and pulled her aside, his smile still fixed for everyone else. "Do you have any idea how stupid that made me look?" he hissed, voice low and sharp. His face was red, eyes hard. Emma had never seen him like that before. He apologized later. Flowers, dinner, promises. But a seed was planted in her heart that night. A quiet seed of doubt. She should have listened to it. Back in the present, Daniel shut his laptop with a loud snap and stood to stretch. "I'm heading outside to take a call," he said, grabbing his phone. Emma nodded, pretending not to care. But she did. A lot. She watched him through the side window as he stepped onto the porch. He checked over his shoulder, making sure he couldn't see her, then raised the phone to his ear. His voice softened, softer than she had heard in months. "Hey, Chloe, I miss you too." The name hit Emma like cold steel. Chloe. She had heard it before, mentioned at dinner as, "My assistant, she's very efficient." Always in a work context, always casual. Emma had never thought much of it. Until now. Chloe. A woman he whispered to, the one who made him gentle again, but not with his wife. Emma didn't gasp. She didn't cry. She didn't storm outside demanding answers. She simply turned away. Inside her chest, something quiet snapped, not with noise, but with clarity. She saw Daniel clearly now, his ambition, his cruelty, his new habits, his wandering affection, and she saw herself clearly too. She wasn't weak for staying quiet. She wasn't scared of confrontation. She wasn't confused. She was calculating. Her silence wasn't surrender. It was preparation. Daniel came back into the house 20 minutes later, humming lightly, as if whispering to another woman was the most normal thing in the world. He walked past Emma without a glance, smelling faintly of the cologne he only wore for corporate dinners or important meetings. Emma went upstairs. She sat at her desk, breathing slow and controlled. Then she opened her laptop. The screen lit up the room. Harper's Strategic Holdings, her secret empire, her quiet power, her future weapon. The dashboard glowed brightly, numbers shifting across the screen like a storm forming in digital silence. Emma stared at it, her fingers steady, her heartbeat calm. Everything inside her settled into place. Tonight, Daniel's whisper wasn't just betrayal. It was the spark that would set everything in motion. Soon, Emma wouldn't just be hurt by his secrets. She would use her own. The printer jammed with a loud crack, spitting papers across Emma's desk like a small explosion in an otherwise quiet room. She jumped, heart racing, grabbing the documents before they scattered to the floor. Financial files, share purchase agreements, hidden account summaries, all tied to one truth. Emma Harper was far more powerful than anyone believed. She stood still, breathing hard, the intensity of the moment settling over her like a weight. For a second, it felt as if the walls themselves were whispering the secret she had carried for years. She gathered the papers, her hands steadying, and the room fell back into silence. Emma sat down, allowing her thoughts to slow. The late-night glow of the desk lamp softened the edges of her memories. She touched the stack of documents, then closed her eyes. Her story didn't begin with wealth. It began with fear. When she was 19, she lived in a small shared apartment. The rent was always late. Her family had no savings. She worked two jobs, day shift at a bakery, night shift at a diner. But she refused to stay trapped in struggle. She began researching natural ingredients, mixing oils and wax in her kitchen late at night. Her roommates teased her for the smell, waving their hands dramatically. She laughed with them, but inside she held on to the idea. That tiny side project became Amel Naturals, the brand that would one day change her life. Emma could still see herself at 22, sitting on the floor surrounded by boxes, labeling jars until her fingers ached. She remembered shipping orders out of borrowed storage space and sleeping on a folding cot in that same room when she was too tired to go home. The memory tightened her chest. At 26, everything shifted. A private equity firm approached her with a life-changing offer. 8 figures. She was scared to sign at first. It felt unreal. So she called a lawyer recommended by a friend. That was the first time she met Mr. Collins. Calm, sharp-eyed, in his 50s, he walked her through every line of the contract. He explained what control she would keep and what she would lose. He never talked down to her. In that small office, surrounded by legal documents she barely understood, she made her first serious strategic decision. She agreed to the sale only after negotiating one critical detail. Her continuing profit shares would flow into a structure of blind trusts and holding companies created under her birth name, Emma Lane, so that nothing would be tied publicly to whatever name she might carry in the future. That was the moment Harper Strategic Holdings was born, not as a public brand, but as the private, central account tying all those entities together behind the scenes. Later, when she married and changed her name to Emma Harper, the internal label on her laptop changed. The legal ownership did not. Mr. Collins once told her, "Your husband should know your real net worth." Emma's reply still echoed in her mind. He doesn't notice the little things. Why would he see the big things? And she had been right. Daniel never questioned anything. Even when she covered their bills, even when her card never declined, even when she paid the down payment on their home with her savings, he never asked where her savings came from. He only enjoyed the benefits. Present day. Emma opened her laptop, the glow revealing the sharp numbers on her screen. She clicked through several holding entities, shell funds, investment arms, and allied firms Mr. Collins and Michael had helped her set up. Each account held Baxter Tech shares. Each account moved quietly. None were directly tied to Emma Harper in any public way. Years ago, she had chosen Baxter Tech as one of many long-term investments. At the time, Daniel didn't even work there. The company had strong growth and a product line that matched her belief in innovation. Later, when Daniel joined the company, she could have told him she was a significant investor. She watched him complain about management, talk about idiot shareholders, and laugh about how no one important ever paid attention to middle managers. So she kept her silence. Now, her firm controlled 47.8% of Baxter Tech. Only one more strategic purchase, already negotiated with a retiring investor, would tip the balance. She felt a quiet strength rise within her. For the first time in years, her heartbeat felt steady, clear, focused. She wasn't just surviving this marriage anymore. She was taking control of its ending. Her computer chimed with an incoming video call. She straightened her posture and clicked accept. Michael Grant, her financial advisor in his early 40s, polite, reliable, and extremely skilled at managing complex portfolios, appeared on the screen. "Evening. Emma," he said warmly, "I have the update you requested." Emma nodded. "Tell me." Michael pulled up a chart behind him. "We're at 47.8% ownership now. The last block of shares is ready for purchase. Once we execute, you'll pass 51%. He paused, letting the words settle. "One final approval from you is all we need." Emma didn't blink. She didn't breathe. This was the moment she had been preparing for, without knowing exactly when she would use it. Michael waited. "Shall we proceed?" he asked. Emma's answer came in a whisper, but it carried the weight of years. "Do it." As the call ended, Emma leaned back, her heart steady, her eyes sharp. She knew what came next. Daniel was about to invite her to a place where he thought he held all the power, without knowing she already owned the ground he stood on. The front door slammed so hard the walls shook. It was the following evening. Emma startled in the middle of sorting documents on her desk. Daniel's heavy footsteps stormed down the hallway like a warning before he even appeared. His voice came next, sharp, commanding. Emma, get dressed. Something important came up. The intensity of his tone sliced through the quiet house. He didn't ask. He instructed, like she was an item on his to-do list. Emma stepped out of her office and saw him standing in the doorway. Tie crooked, suit half-buttoned, expression tense. His eyes scanned her comfortable clothes and he frowned. Wear something elegant, he said. We're going to a corporate dinner tonight. My boss wants to see, well, us. There it was, that slight hesitation before us. Emma felt the truth behind it. He didn't really want her there. He wanted what she represented, a wife who made him look stable, a wife who made him look respectable, a wife who knew when to smile and when to stay quiet. She nodded calmly. I'll get ready. This was the first time in months Daniel had invited her to any work event. That alone sent a sharp tension through her chest, because sudden invitations from a neglectful person rarely come from care. They come from strategy. While she changed, Daniel paced downstairs. Through the vent above her closet, she could hear the nervous rhythm of his steps. He was rehearsing lines under his breath, something about possible promotion, impressing Lawson, showing we're solid at home. Emma came down wearing a simple, elegant black dress. Daniel glanced up, and for a moment, shock flickered across his face, almost as if he had forgotten how beautiful she could look when she chose to be seen. Then the moment passed. Good, he said. Just don't talk too much. Lawson likes things simple. The sting was quiet but sharp. On the drive, Daniel kept adjusting his tie, gripping the steering wheel tightly. He opened his phone repeatedly, angling the screen slightly away from her. But not enough. A message flashed across the top. Chloe, see you after. Emma didn't react outwardly. She only blinked once. The words explained everything he hadn't said. The dinner wasn't just about work. It was about image, her image in front. Chloe in the background. Under the cover of her purse, she raised her own phone and took a silent screenshot of the notification. No anger, no panic, just evidence. Daniel never noticed. As they approached the venue, a large, reserved restaurant attached to a hotel, Daniel's breathing softened. His nervous tension shifted into pride. He straightened his jacket, checked his reflection in the window, and walked faster as they neared the entrance. He was excited to impress someone who wasn't his wife. Emma walked beside him quietly, observing everything. His exaggerated confidence, his sudden politeness to the restaurant staff, his loud laugh as he greeted coworkers near the entrance. Everything about him tonight felt staged. Inside, the dinner was already underway. A long table filled Daniel's department. Laughter, drinks, forced smiles. The atmosphere buzzed with people trying to impress each other more than they actually enjoyed being there. Daniel guided Emma to an empty seat near the center. Stay close, he murmured. It sounded less like affection and more like a rule. Moments later, the boss arrived. Mr. Lawson, a tall man in his late 50s, with slicked back hair and a sharp jawline, walked over with a drink already in hand. He was the kind of man who spoke just loud enough that others turned to listen, even when he wasn't saying anything important. His role as director of operations made him powerful and ruthless. His eyes scanned Emma like she was a resume he hadn't approved. Ah, he said slowly, raising one eyebrow. So this is the wife. The tone, the look, the judgment. It was clear he hadn't expected her, and maybe hadn't wanted her there either. Daniel let out a stiff laugh, unsure of how to respond. Emma simply held Mr. Lawson's gaze, calm and unreadable. Something about her composure made his eyes narrow, just slightly. He couldn't place what bothered him, the steady eye contact, the quiet confidence, or the feeling that she understood more than she was saying. But he dismissed it. He was used to wives sitting quietly at company events and fading into the background. Emma folded her hands in her lap and gave a gentle, polite smile. Inside her mind, a storm was forming, but her face stayed perfectly composed. Daniel leaned toward her and whispered, "Just follow my lead tonight." He had no idea that very soon he would lose the right to lead anything at all. The argument didn't start with a fight. It started with small jabs and lazy jokes that grew meaner as the alcohol flowed. The long dinner table buzzed with conversation, the clink of glasses, and the low hum of corporate laughter. Plates of food came and went. Bottles of wine emptied faster than they should have. Mr. Lawson kept ordering more. Relax, he boomed. Big week, big drinks. Daniel laughed louder than necessary each time, leaning into the performance. The more Lawson praised him, the more Daniel showed off. Emma sat quietly, hands folded, watching the scene unfold. The room smelled of roasted meat, perfume, and alcohol, all mixing with the slow stench of disrespect. 2 seats away, Chloe, Daniel's assistant, watched everything with a sly smile. She was in her late 20s, confident, ambitious, and dressed a little too boldly for a corporate dinner. Her eyes lingered on Daniel in ways a wife should never have to see. Emma noticed every detail, but she made no move. Her silence tonight was not weakness. It was strategy. At one point, someone from Daniel's team raised a glass and said loudly, "To Daniel, the only guy who can talk Lawson into anything." Laughter followed. Daniel puffed his chest. He stood up, swaying slightly, enjoying the moment like a man addicted to approval. "Emma's the real tough one," he declared, waving his glass. "She can handle anything. Right, honey?" Several faces turned toward Emma. Some looked curious, some pitying, some just drunk. Emma answered softly, "Daniel, let's just eat. You've had enough." Someone down the table cut her off with a mocking tone. "Does your wife ever stand up to you, Daniel? Or does she follow orders like a puppy?" The table erupted in laughter. Mr. Lawson leaned back, watching closely, clearly entertained. His boozy grin said he enjoyed seeing how far Daniel would go. Daniel's face changed. Something prideful and ugly twisted inside him. Instead of defending his wife, he joined the laughter. He looked around for something, anything to impress the room, to prove he was in control of everything, including her. His eyes landed on a jug at the center of the table. It was a cloudy glass pitcher filled with what had once been table water. Melted ice, squeezed lemon slices, floating mint leaves, crumbs from the breadbasket. The staff had left it there, intending to clear it later. Now it looked like dirty water. Daniel grabbed it. The room held its breath. Emma knew what was coming a second before it happened. She could have reached out. She could have said his name sharply. She could have stood up. She didn't. She wanted to see, without question, who he had become in front of people he wanted to impress. Daniel lifted the jug with a smirk, playing to his audience. "She can't even handle this," he said. Then he tipped it. Splash. The cold, murky water poured over Emma's dress, soaking the fabric, dripping onto her shoes, pooling beneath her chair. Lemon slices and mint leaves slid down the black material like stains that refused to disappear. The room exploded with laughter. Mr. Lawson slapped the table, roaring. Chloe covered her mouth, not to hide shock, but to hide a satisfied smile. Someone's phone came up, camera pointed in Emma's direction. Another person turned away, uncomfortable but too afraid to speak up in front of the boss. No one stopped it. No one said, "That's enough." Emma didn't flinch. She didn't gasp. She didn't look away. She sat perfectly still. For a moment, time slowed. The sound of the room faded, and a memory rose from deep inside her. She remembered a day years ago when they first started dating. They had volunteered to paint an old community building together. Emma accidentally spilled blue paint all over her arms and part of her shirt. Daniel had laughed gently back then. Soft, playful, kind. "Come on, Picasso," he had said, guiding her to the outdoor sink. He helped her wash the paint off, holding her hands carefully, joking about her artistic disaster. He had been tender. He had been patient. He had been loving. Where did that man go? When did he become someone who humiliated her for applause? The memory faded, swallowed by the present, by dirty water dripping from her fingertips. Emma slowly stood. The laughter quieted. People exchanged confused looks. Even Daniel blinked, unsure of what reaction he wanted from her. Emma looked at him, not with anger, but with a calm, icy clarity that made his drunken confidence falter. Then she did something that silenced the entire table. She smiled, a small, soft, unsettling smile. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was steady, quiet, controlled. This clarified everything. The words hung in the air, heavier than any shout. She picked up her purse, lifted her chin, and walked toward the exit with steady steps, dignity wrapped around her like a shield. Daniel watched her go, jaw slightly open, the alcohol in his system not strong enough to numb the unease creeping into his chest. Mr. Lawson raised an eyebrow, amused but also faintly annoyed that his entertainment had ended. Chloe smirked, thinking she had finally won. But Emma wasn't running. She wasn't breaking. She was deciding. Tonight became the moment everything inside her shifted from patience to action. And no one at that table, not even Daniel, understood what her calm meant. Not yet. As Emma stepped outside into the cool night air, one thought settled in her chest. The next thing I remove won't be water. It will be my ring. The restroom door slammed behind Emma so hard that the mirror rattled. She didn't mean to hit it that forcefully, but the shock of the moment, the dirty water, the laughter, Daniel's cold eyes, followed her like a shadow. Her breath came fast and sharp. The humiliation clung to her skin as tightly as her soaked dress. Dirty water dripped from her sleeves and hit the floor in tiny splashes. Drip, drip, drip. The sound was too loud in the cold, tiled room. She gripped the edge of the sink, her knuckles turning white. She expected to feel anger, shame, heartbreak. Instead, a strange, powerful calm settled over her. She looked up. Her reflection stared back, wet, tired, stained with murky water, but steady. Her eyes were dry, her posture firm. There were no tears, no shaking hands, no fear, only clarity. The woman looking back at her wasn't defeated. She was finished. Slowly, Emma lifted her left hand. The gold ring on her finger had once meant love, loyalty, and partnership. Now it felt like a chain she had worn long after the key was lost. She twisted it gently. The ring slid off more easily than she expected, almost like it had been ready to leave too. She placed it on the sink. The small metal band made a soft clink against the porcelain. The sound echoed through the room like the closing of a chapter. "I'm done," she whispered. The words were soft, but inside her they thundered like a breaking storm. Emma leaned forward, letting the quiet settle. Her mind drifted, not to the dirty water, but to the many moments before it. It was a year ago. She had made dinner, his favorite meal. The table was set with candles. She timed everything so he could come home early for once. But Daniel had walked in late, tired and annoyed, complaining about work and how no one respected him. Emma had gathered her courage like fragile glass. "Daniel, I think we should consider counseling," she said gently. "We keep arguing. We keep misunderstanding each other. Maybe we need help." She remembered the way he laughed. Not a loud laugh, but a sharp, mocking one. "Counseling? For what? We're fine. You're the one who overthinks everything." He kissed her forehead, not really looking at her, and walked away to watch TV. She ate dinner alone. That was the night she learned something important. He didn't want to fix things. He only wanted to ignore them. But tonight he'd gone beyond ignoring. He had made sure everyone saw what he really thought of her. And he had done it in public. Emma looked back at the ring on the sink. She felt lighter without it, freer. She grabbed a paper towel, dried her hands slowly, then dabbed her face. She wiped off the last drops of dirty water. The stains on her dress remained, just like the stains Daniel had thrown on their marriage long before tonight. Her phone buzzed in her bag. She pulled it out. One message. "Daniel, where are you? You left too fast. Come back." No apology, no concern, just entitlement. She read the words once, then calmly deleted them. Then she opened a different conversation. Mr. Collins, her lawyer, the man who handled every confidential contract, every investment, every part of her hidden life, was already marked as a favorite contact. Hours earlier, he had already started processing the final Baxter Tech purchase based on her approval. Tonight, her focus shifted. Her fingers moved without hesitation. "Emma, proceed with the board meeting and divorce prep. The acquisition is already in motion. I want everything ready by tomorrow." She hit send. She hit send. No turning back. She knew Collins would understand. Finalize the share acquisition. Prepare the legal grounds. Begin divorce paperwork. She dropped the used paper towel in the trash, smoothed her dress as best she could, and lifted her chin. When she opened the restroom door and walked out, there was no fear, no doubt, only purpose. Tonight broke something inside her, but it also freed her. The next step would change everything. Tomorrow, Daniel wouldn't be talking to a hurt wife at home. He'd be walking straight into a strategist's plan. The sound of the front door slamming shook the entire house. Daniel had returned from the dinner later that night, drunk and irritated, shouting her name as he stumbled through the hallway. "Emma, why did you leave like that? You embarrassed me." His angry footsteps echoed across the floor, growing louder as he searched for her. But Emma wasn't hiding. She was waiting. She stood in her home office with her arms crossed, calm as glass. Her heart didn't race. Her hands didn't shake. She had already taken off the ring and put it in a small drawer. She was no longer the woman who chased peace. She was the woman who prepared for war. Daniel burst into the doorway, red-faced and unsteady. "We need to talk," he barked. Emma spoke before he could continue. "Not tonight." Her tone was so steady, so cold, that Daniel blinked. He took a step back, stunned. She had never spoken to him like that. He tried again, voice raised. "You made me look bad in front of everyone." Emma simply reached forward and closed her laptop lid in a firm, final motion. The message was clear. Daniel scoffed, turned, and stormed out, slamming the bedroom door behind him. The house fell silent. Emma reopened her laptop. Now the work began. She moved with precision, as if she had been preparing for this moment long before tonight. Because she had. Every quiet suspicion, every ignored detail, every moment she swallowed a question had slowly turned into a habit of keeping proof. She pulled up her locked digital file labeled Personal Records. Inside was everything she had silently collected over the months, because Emma was the type of woman who noticed things even when people assumed she didn't. Screenshot number 1, a photo of the message from Chloe earlier that evening. "See you after." Screenshot number 2, a picture she had once taken of Daniel's tablet screen when he left it on the couch. The call log showed Chloe's name repeatedly, late at night. Folder number 1, audio recordings. She played a short clip. Daniel's voice whispered, "I'll be there soon, Chloe. She's asleep." She had recorded it months ago from the hallway when he took late-night calls in the kitchen, thinking she was upstairs. It was legal in their state to record her own home conversations he was having in her presence, even if he didn't realize she could hear. Her jaw didn't clench. Her breath didn't hitch. She kept playing the files, each one from a different night, each whispering betrayal. Then she opened another folder labeled Baxter Tech. Inside, emails Daniel had accidentally forwarded to their shared printer at home instead of the office. Copies of reports he bragged about fixing before sending to Mr. Lawson. Attachments he had once asked Emma to quickly check for spelling, which she quietly saved. She had learned to keep a copy whenever something felt off. Folder number 2, financial irregularities expense reports that didn't match project budgets. Purchase orders Chloe had approved that led to vendors with no clear track record. Approvals Daniel signed without reading, just to impress Lawson by moving fast. Piece by piece, the documents painted a picture. Chloe wasn't just a mistress. She was involved in risky financial behavior that could ruin Daniel's position. Emma breathed slowly, letting the truth settle. Everything she suspected was real, and now she had proof, not just of betrayal as a wife, but of misconduct that mattered to Baxter Tech's future. Her phone buzzed, a message from Mr. Collins. "Collins, I saw your earlier text. Acquisition is closing in the morning. Are you safe?" Emma replied with one sentence. "Emma, call me." Seconds later, the screen lit up with an incoming video call. She answered. Mr. Collins, always calm in his dark suit and glasses, appeared on screen with a serious expression. He looked like a man ready for strategy, not sleep. "Tell me everything," he said. Emma did. She showed him the screenshots. She played the recordings. She forwarded the documents from her secure drive. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing firmer, sharper. When she finished, he said, "Emma, this is enough for divorce, misconduct claims, and board-level action. Are you sure you want to proceed on all fronts?" Her voice didn't waver. "Yes," he nodded once. "The Baxter Tech deal will finalize by tomorrow morning," he said. "Once the registry updates, you'll officially hold just over 51% through Harper Strategic Holdings. That gives you the legal power to call an emergency board meeting. Emma met his gaze through the screen, her eyes calm and steady. Schedule it, she said, as soon as the ownership is confirmed. Mr. Collins leaned back slightly, stunned by her resolve, but not surprised. It will change everything, he said quietly. That's the point, she replied. The call ended. Emma closed her laptop, her heart calm and certain. Tonight, she didn't just gather evidence. She built a weapon, and she aligned it with her new majority control. Tomorrow, Daniel would walk into work thinking the company was his chance at greatness, without knowing who now sat at the top. Daniel stormed into the office the next morning with the force of a man who believed the world owed him respect. He didn't knock anything over, but his presence felt like a shove, loud, heavy, impatient. His shoes clicked hard against the polished floor. His eyes were still red from the night before, but his pride was intact. In his mind, Emma leaving the dinner early was her mistake, not his. He walked in expecting sympathy for having a difficult wife, expecting Chloe's soft attention, expecting another day where he could complain and feel important. Chloe was already at her desk, dressed sharply, typing quickly. She looked up at him with a bright smile, the kind that said she still believed she had the upper hand. Rough night, she teased softly. Daniel smirked and adjusted his tie. Nothing I can't handle. Mr. Lawson, the department head, walked by and gave Daniel a heavy pat on the back. There he is, the man of the hour, Lawson boomed. Good show last night. Daniel puffed his chest, proud of the approval. Everything seemed normal. Everything felt safe, but safety can vanish faster than pride. At 9:17 a.m., the office phones rang all at once. A synchronized chime. Unusual, disruptive. Daniel frowned. Moments later, his assistant stepped out of her cubicle, looking nervous. Mr. Harper, the board is requesting your immediate presence in the main conference room. Daniel blinked. The board? Why? I wasn't told, she replied. Chloe glanced up, confused. Do you need me to come? She asked, half rising from her chair. But Daniel's ego had already decided this was good news. A board meeting with his name on it? Maybe it was about a promotion. Maybe Lawson had put in a word. He straightened his tie again, flashed a grin at Chloe, and walked toward the conference room with confident strides. Inside the conference room, the atmosphere was nothing like he expected. Silence, cold, thick enough to choke on. Several board members sat at the long glass table. A corporate attorney and the company's internal HR director were there as well. Papers lay neatly arranged in front of each of them. No one spoke. No one smiled. And sitting at the head of the table, Emma, clean, calm, composed, her dark hair perfectly brushed, her posture flawless. A single folder sat in front of her, closed as if waiting for the right moment. Daniel stopped walking, his breath caught. His vision blurred for a second as confusion slammed into him. What are you doing here, huh? He asked, voice a little louder than he intended. Mr. Lawson leaned toward another board member and hissed under his breath. Why is she here? But the board member he whispered to didn't answer. His expression stayed professional, guarded. Emma lifted her eyes slowly and met Daniel's gaze without blinking. Good morning, Daniel, she said calmly. Please have a seat. Her tone didn't request. It commanded. Daniel looked around the table, waiting for someone else to take over. When no one did, he laughed weakly. This is some kind of joke, right? No one laughed with him. The chair of the governance committee, Mr. Hayes, cleared his throat. Sit down, Mr. Harper, he said. Daniel, trembling with confusion, dropped into the nearest chair. Emma opened the folder. Inside was a single sheet. She slid it to Mr. Hayes, who adjusted his glasses and began reading aloud. Ownership distribution update, he said. As of this morning's registry, Harper Strategic Holdings holds 51.3% of Baxter Tech. Daniel froze. No, he whispered. No, that's impossible. Emma turned another document toward the rest of the board. This one held the legal confirmation of beneficial ownership. Her birth name, Emma Lane, and her married name, Emma Harper, both appeared, tying her identity to Harper Strategic Holdings clearly. Mr. Lawson swallowed hard. You're the majority shareholder? He asked. Emma looked at him evenly. I am. The board members had already reviewed these documents earlier. They knew the numbers were real. This meeting was not about whether she owned the company. It was about what she intended to do with that power. Daniel's world cracked straight down the middle. All the times he ignored her, all the nights he whispered to Chloe, all the jokes he made about her being just a simple wife. They came crashing back like falling bricks. He tried to stand, but his legs shook. Emma, please, you can't be serious. This is my job. My career. Emma didn't raise her voice. She didn't show anger. She didn't show joy. She simply delivered her line like a verdict already sealed. Daniel, she said softly, based on the evidence of misconduct in your behavior representing this company, you're dismissed from your position, effective immediately. She nodded once to the HR director, who had a folder ready with formal termination documents. The room went still. Board members exchanged controlled, shocked looks. Chloe, standing just inside the doorway now, went pale. Daniel stared at Emma, unable to breathe. His downfall had begun, and he was the very last one to see it coming. Outside that room waited one more blow, one Emma had prepared not just as a boss, but as a woman reclaiming her life. The conference room door opened with sudden force as two security officers stepped inside. Their heavy boots hit the floor with quick, sharp steps. Everyone turned. Daniel's head jerked up, his face pale. What's happening?" he stammered. The taller guard, Officer Green, spoke firmly. "Mr. Harper, you need to come with us." Daniel's eyes bounced between the guards, the board, and Emma. "Emma, tell them to stop. This is a misunderstanding." But Emma didn't speak. She simply closed her folder, stood, and stepped aside, giving the guards a clear path. Daniel grabbed the back of his chair like a man drowning. "You can't fire me like this. I've been here for years." No one answered. The silence was a verdict. His pride cracked first. His voice followed, trembling. "You can't. Emma, please. This is my life." But the guards each took an arm and guided him out. He didn't fight physically. He fought with denial, with disbelief, with ragged pleas. As they escorted him down the hallway, the office buzzed with whispers. Phones lifted discreetly, heads peered over cubicle walls. Every step Daniel took echoed with humiliation. Chloe hurried out of her office, heels clacking, eyes wide with panic. "Daniel, what's happening? Why is security here?" she cried. Officer Green stepped slightly in front of Daniel. "Move aside, miss," he said. Chloe tried to push around him anyway. "Daniel, talk to me." Daniel turned his head toward her, desperate. "Chloe, just stay close. I need—" But before he could finish, another voice cut through the tension. "Miss Chloe Miller, please stop there." Mr. Collins, Emma's lawyer and now corporate counsel to the new majority owner, stepped forward carrying a thick envelope. Chloe froze. Collins held up the documents slightly, addressing her in a firm but professional tone. "These contain evidence of financial irregularities tied to purchases you approved," he said. "The company will be conducting a formal investigation. You'll be contacted by internal and external auditors." Chloe's face drained of all color. She grabbed Daniel's arm, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "You told me this wouldn't come back to me," she hissed. "You said no one would find out." Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came out, because truthfully, he had never thought about consequences at all. Chloe looked at the guards, then at Collins, then at Daniel again. Her expression hardened. "You're useless to me now," she snapped. She let go of his arm, turned, and walked away without looking back. Daniel watched her go, stunned. He was losing everything and everyone at once. When they reached the lobby, Emma was already there, standing calmly beside Mr. Collins. Daniel's heart crumbled. "Emma, please. We need to talk. We can fix this," he begged. But Collins stepped forward and handed Daniel a second stack of papers, thicker than the termination documents. "Mr. Harper," he said, voice strictly professional, "these are your divorce filings and supporting evidence. This is official service." Daniel took them with shaking hands. No, Emma, you don't mean this." Emma met his eyes. Her expression wasn't cruel. It was empty, like she had already let go a long time ago, and today was only the paperwork. Around them, employees had gathered near the stairs and windows. They whispered, recorded videos, watched the fall of the man who once walked through the office like he owned it. Public reckoning. Daniel felt every pair of eyes like lead on his shoulders. He stepped toward Emma, voice cracking, begging, "Please, don't do this. You know I love you. You know I didn't mean—" Emma walked past him, like he was air, like he was a stranger asking for directions she didn't have time to give. She didn't pause. She didn't tremble. She didn't look back. But when she reached the glass doors, she finally spoke, voice soft but sharp enough to cut through the whole lobby. "Love doesn't look like what you did last night." Daniel broke. He collapsed into a lobby chair, clutching the papers, his breath shaking, his eyes burning with a mixture of shame and shock. Emma stepped into the elevator with Mr. Collins beside her. The doors began to close. For the first time since meeting her, Daniel realized something devastating. She was never going to be on his side again. As the elevator doors shut, Emma said quietly to Collins, "Now, let's finish everything properly." The pen landed on the desk with a firm finality. Emma exhaled sharply, the sound filling the quiet office like a thunderclap. The sudden intensity of the moment made her shoulders drop with release. In front of her, the final divorce documents sat neatly stacked, each page marked with her calm, steady signature and the official court stamps. It was over. Not the memory, not every scar, but the chain that once bound her to Daniel. Several weeks had passed since the day security walked him out of Baxter Tech. In that time, lawyers had gone back and forth, financial disclosures had been made, and every piece of their shared life had been divided, signed, and sealed. Now the last signature was done. Sunlight streamed through the large office windows of her new executive floor, bathing her desk in warm gold. The brightness almost felt symbolic, like the room itself recognized her freedom. She leaned back and took in the quiet. No shouting, no humiliation, no tension pressing against her chest. For the first time in years, she felt real air reaching her lungs. Her empire, Harper's Strategic Holdings, no longer had to remain half-hidden. Her identity as the majority owner of Baxter Tech was now public and accepted inside the company. There were still legal structures and trusts for protection, but she no longer had to pretend to be just the wife. She could run her life and her company openly, without fear that someone would mistake her silence for weakness. Emma stood, walked to the window, and looked down at the city below. Workers moved in and out of buildings. Cars flowed like currents through the streets. People lived their lives with normal problems. She had survived something different. Not just a bad marriage, but a slow erosion of self-worth, followed by a sharp public betrayal. And yet, she was still standing. Later that day, Emma walked into a conference room for her first larger meeting as the confirmed majority owner of Baxter Tech. Board members, department heads, HR, and legal were present. There was no mocking tone, no pity, no dismissive smirks, only attention, only respect. Emma opened the meeting with a calm voice. "We're implementing new policies," she said. "Clear anti-harassment rules, transparent reporting, training for managers. More than that, we're changing how this company treats people, not just how it counts profits." She looked directly at Mr. Lawson, who now sat quieter than usual, his earlier arrogance dulled by recent events. "No more cultures where cruelty is entertainment," she added. Heads nodded, pens scribbled. The HR director looked almost relieved. A new era began under her direction. She wasn't just removing Daniel, she was making sure the kind of environment that applauded him that night never thrived here again. Across town, Daniel sat alone in a small, dimly lit apartment. The room was modest, just a single couch, a cheap table, a flickering lamp, and cardboard boxes he hadn't bothered to unpack. His shoulders slumped. His eyes were tired and hollow. On the scratch coffee table lay a newspaper with the headline, "Former Manager Daniel Harper Terminated After Misconduct Allegations. Internal Reforms Announced." The article didn't mention his name in big letters, but it named his role and his department. Anyone who knew him could connect the dots. His phone buzzed beside him. He grabbed it quickly, hoping, just hoping, it was Chloe. Maybe she had reconsidered, but when he opened their conversation, he saw the long list of messages he had sent her, none of them read. Chloe, meanwhile, sat in a new car, wearing a new bag, laughing beside another executive from a different company. someone with more power, more influence. She opened Daniel's message thread for a split second, saw the flood of texts, rolled her eyes, and locked the phone without replying. People like Chloe didn't stay when the benefits disappeared. Daniel finally understood that. Meanwhile, Emma prepared her garden chair outside her home. The house felt different now, quieter, safer. It was evening, and a soft wind carried the scent of fresh leaves. Birds chirped, the sky glowed with muted pinks and oranges, the day folding gently into night. She sat down slowly, letting the peace settle into her bones. She wasn't thinking about revenge anymore. She wasn't thinking about Daniel. She wasn't thinking about the past. She was thinking about freedom, about the life she had regained, about the woman she had become. Emma Harper was no longer invisible, no longer overshadowed, no longer underestimated. She was whole. She closed her eyes, and the calm voice inside her whispered a truth she had earned. Sometimes the person they underestimate becomes the storm that rewrites their destiny. The scene softened. The garden grew quiet. The sky dimmed into a peaceful blue. Emma breathed in the future. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.